Have you ever been to a conference or trade show and felt like it wasn't worth the effort or the time or the money? There are so many business conferences out there. It's important that if you're gonna take the time away from work to attend a conference, you know exactly how to maximize it. My name is Vanessa Van Edwards, and I'm a human behavior hacker. In our lab, Science of People, we teach you the most advanced people skill strategies to get the most out of your professional relationships. Today, we're tackling conferences. The right conference can be a game changer for your business. More importantly, the right conference, done the right way, can prove to be a goldmine of opportunities. Whether you're going to a trade show, festival, or business conference, you have to be prepared. You're already spending time, money, and energy to get to the event. Let me teach you some tricks of the trade when you're at the event. I want you to be a conference pro. You know the conference pros. Conference pros look forward to their event because they're certain they will get new business from it. Conference pros know exactly how to work a room and walk up to a stranger like an old friend. Conference pros are a magnet for business cards because they aren't the sleazy schmoozer types. They're the people who everyone wants to sit next to at lunch. Conference pros seem to effortlessly manage the schedule, land VIP coffees, and kill it at after parties. My friend, this can be you. Let me show you how. Tip number 1, your assets. Conference pros not only have the skills to rock an event, they also have an arsenal of tools at their disposal. Before you go to the event, make sure you have the following in place and ready to go. Your badge. One of your most important but overlooked assets for conferences is your badge. It's your first impression. It's your conversation starter. It's your calling card. It is your key to great interactions. Before leaving, double and triple check that your name and company is spelled right in the conference system. This way you won't show up and discover a mistake. You also might consider bringing your own badge, lanyard, or pins to add. It's easy to strike up a conversation with someone who has added something interesting to the boring traditional badge. Insider tip: if you have an opportunity to add a conversation starter to your badge, do it. For example, can you write your favorite quote on the back of your badge so if it flips over, there's still something interesting there? Can you add a conversation starter below your name? Sometimes badges allow you to add an interesting fact. Never pass up an opportunity to add an additional element to your badge. It will make you easier to approach. Your contact. If someone wants your information, you can definitely give them a business card. We'll talk about that next. But you also want to be able to pass someone your info, phone to phone. This is especially helpful if someone wants to grab drinks later. I highly recommend having a professional contact for yourself in your address book. That way you can text it to someone quickly. This conference contact should just have your phone number, email, website, and maybe social info like your Twitter or Instagram handle. I learned this the hard way when someone asked me to text my contact info to them and I had my airline numbers, license plate, and my contact notes. Awkward. Have a professional contact for yourself so it's all set up. Your business card. Hopefully this is obvious, but bring a ton of cards, more than you ever think you will need. Don't be that person who runs out and needs to write their number and name on a napkin. One other big thing to think about is that your business card is an asset. Be honest, is your business card boring? Conference pros have interesting, conversation-sparking, memorable business cards because they're getting so many at once. If you can, I highly recommend having your picture on your business card so people will remember who you are when they look at it later. Check out mine. It has my picture, as well as a reference to see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, which always gets conversations going. I have 5 other ideas for making your business card awesome in my guide at scienceofpeople.com/card. Be sure to check it out after this video if you need more ideas. Tip number 2, pitch perfect. Most people have one elevator pitch that they use for everything. This is a mistake for conferences. You want a conference-specific elevator pitch tailored to the people you are meeting. This will help you be more relevant and more memorable. How do you tailor your pitch for a conference? You have a few options. My everyday elevator pitch is, my name is Vanessa and I'm lead investigator at a human behavior research lab called The Science of People. However, I change this up for different kinds of conferences. You want to make it more niched and specific for conference attendees. For example, I've spoken at South by Southwest Interactive Conference, which is a very technology-focused conference. For this event, I could say, my name is Vanessa and I run a human behavior research lab. We look for patterns for how people use technology. Or I could say why I'm attending the specific conference. My name is Vanessa and I'm at South by Southwest looking for article ideas for my human behavior research lab. If you really want to be a conference pro, you can specifically reference them if you know what they do from their badge or their introduction. I might say, my name is Vanessa and I help journalists like you find interesting human behavior research to write about. Before you arrive at your conference, write out a few specific variations of your pitch, especially if you're at a trade show behind a booth. You want your elevator pitch to also be your sales pitch for your booth. For example, when I'm running a Science People booth or table and doing experiments on site, my pitch is more like this. We're a human behavior research lab running an experiment today on how fast you can solve this puzzle. Want to try it? Tip number 3, offer, don't ask. In the first few years of my business, I made a colossal mistake. I thought conferences were about asking. I would sign up for a big industry conference and write down all of my goals for the conference. Typically, get more business, get more contacts, get more business cards, get more info. These are all asks, me asking for something from someone. Not surprisingly, these conferences went terribly. I came across as spammy and needy. By accident, I discovered the power of the offer. I was invited to a trend conference as a blogger, and my sole goal was to find interesting people and products to cover. In other words, I was going around offering coverage. There was no real benefit to me. I was just looking for cool people to feature and drive traffic to. This conference rocked my world. Not only did I have a ton of fun, but I also had the most interesting conversations with fascinating people. I drummed up more business than I ever could have dreamed of. I still get business from a contact I made at that conference 8 years ago. Why? I was in the offer mentality. When thinking about your event, don't think about what you need or what you want to ask for. Focus only on what you can offer. How can you help people at the conference? What can you give them? What do you have to offer the people you meet? That's the mentality I want you to walk around with because it breeds authenticity and confidence. When we're in the ask mentality, we're in scarcity and we're in need. When we're in the offer mentality, we're in abundance and we feel more confident. This is how you make lasting connections and stay open-minded to potential business contacts that might surprise you. Tip number 4, the context come on. The art of seduction and the art of the conference are not all that different. It's hard to approach someone at a conference and avoid being creepy, sleazy, or salesman-y. But it can be done. Here's the trick, context. I never, ever approach someone cold at an event. If you can do this, more power to you, but I find it extremely difficult to do the cold approach. I want you to be the master of the context come on. The context come on is when you use your location or surroundings to make an opening line in conversation easy. I make all of my conference contacts in context. I look for lines at conferences because it's the easiest way to meet the person in front and behind you. I also never pass up the opportunity to get to a session 5 minutes early and sit at a partially full table or a block of seats with people. Don't pick the empty table or the row of empty seats. You're missing the best networking opportunity. When you sit down at a table, you can ask an easy context come on. What made you sign up for the session today? Or how's the lunch? Or simply, what brings you here? Most people think that networking happens during the scheduled networking breaks or after parties, but I think the best networking happens when most people don't expect it. Here are my favorite contexts and come-ons. Lunch table. Enjoying the conference so far? Coffee line. Juicing up for the big keynote? Bathroom line. How are you liking today's sessions? Seatmate. What brings you to this session? Badge line or the gift bag line? Come to a lot of conferences like this? Elevator or escalator? Been to this conference before? Let me tell you a story about how I accidentally learned the art of the context come on. When I first started my business 9 years ago, there was a conference I was desperate to attend, but it was way, way, way out of my budget. However, I knew that meeting the people at this conference could be totally game-changing for my business. I couldn't afford to buy a ticket for the conference, so I figured there had to be another way to get access. I thought, what does everyone at a conference need? Coffee. I saw that there was a Starbucks in the lobby of the conference hotel, and I did have enough budget to fly to the city and stay in a cheap motel near the airport. So that is exactly what I did. The morning of the conference, I took the bus to the conference hotel and set up shop at the Starbucks downstairs. I bought a coffee and gave the baristas a $20 tip each, and then waited. As soon as I saw someone with a badge get in line for coffee, I stood in line behind them. Then I would use one of the context come-ons above. I wanted to be extremely transparent, so once we would get to talking about the conference, I would tell them that I really wanted to attend, but I couldn't afford it. So I was having my own mini conference in line and trying to network with people while they got their coffee. Every single person laughed, and most told me their own story about bootstrapping or hustling. I got 72 business cards that day and bought 4 of the speakers coffee, which led to some incredible opportunities later. This tactic was a bit aggressive, but it taught me the power of context and seeing opportunity outside the typical networking break or after party. Tip number 5, get in and stay in. Once you're in, you want to stay in. So once you've used a context come on and it's going great, here's how to keep the conversation going. These tips work whether you're standing at a booth or chatting to someone in the bathroom line. First, use conference-specific conversation starters like, what'd you think of the keynote? Have you learned anything really interesting so far? Which breakout session are you going to? Any booths I should stop by in the exhibition hall? Second, use killer conversation starters. Please do not ask them what they do or where they are from. These are ridiculously boring, and you are more interesting than that. Once you've had some casual chit-chat, use one of our killer conversation starters, like, working on anything exciting recently? This is a better way to ask someone what they do. Or, what are you looking forward to for the rest of the day? This is better than asking someone, how are ya? Who is the most interesting person you've met here? This is a great way to build your network. These are just 3 of my favorite. We have a huge list of conversation starters in our free, yes, free 3 Steps to Amazing Conversation course. Check it out at scienceofpeople.com/conversationalist. Tip number 6, know your exit cues. Okay, so you've been having a great conversation, and now it's time to wrap it up. Your last impression is just as important as your first impression. Make it count. The art of the graceful exit is all about giving someone clear exit cues, especially if you have someone who wants to talk and talk and talk. Subtlety is not going to work for you. After many years of conference going and many failed exit attempts, I have learned that the direct approach is always respectful and appreciated. I created this exit formula. Genuine compliment plus follow-up item plus handshake equals graceful exit. First, when you're ready to wrap it up, give them a genuine compliment like, it's been a pleasure talking to you, or I loved hearing about your business idea. Then cue them to the exit with a follow-up item like, I'll follow up with you on email, or hope to see you at the after party tonight, or pass me your business card and I'll find you on LinkedIn. Lastly, the handshake is a really clear nonverbal cue that will get even the most persistent person to realize that you want to make a graceful exit. Smile, stick out your hand, and give a nice send-off with well wishes like, good luck today, or break a leg in your workshop, or safe travels. Insider tip. One of the benefits of using the context come on is that a graceful exit is built in. For example, if you're chatting with someone in the coffee line, you have a natural exit once you both get your lattes. Tip number 7, know your limits. If you're not an extrovert, don't try to be. Even if you are an extrovert, we all have our limits. The worst way to do a conference is to try to do it all, even when you're exhausted or out of your element. In my book, Captivate, I talk about locations that make you thrive and places that make you survive. Do you do better one-on-one? Then setting up coffees at conferences is going to be way more productive for you than attending a breakout session. Do you love late nights? Then host an after party. Knowing your limits also comes to food, sleep, and timing. If you're particular about food, bring your own snacks. If you aren't a morning person, think about skipping the morning session so you have more energy for the happy hour event later. Here's the bottom line. You don't have to do it all. Let me give you an example. South by Southwest is a huge tech, film, and music festival in Austin, Texas. Every year they host over 50,000 attendees. It is overwhelming to say the least, but it's also amazing, stimulating, and fun. If you know your limits. I spoke at South by Southwest 2015 and knew that I would have to create some limits. For me, I thrive in learning locations. I love workshops, keynotes, breakouts, and seminars. And I feel like I barely survive at after parties, concerts, clubs, and really loud bars. So I build my schedule around being one of the first at the conference in the morning and don't RSVP for any night events that I think will exhaust me for the next day. Another limit I discovered is how monstrously big Austin is and how hard it is to get around, especially in heels, especially lugging around a laptop, especially at night alone as a female. My first year, I was only one short bus ride away from the convention center, but it was exhausting not being able to drop stuff off at the hotel and catch public transit at night. So in recent years, I saved up enough money to get a hotel right near the convention center. It was pricey, but I get way more out of the time I spent. Tip number 8, pre-networking. Maximizing a conference doesn't just happen at the conference. About a week before the conference, you should try to connect with speakers, VIPs, or special attendees. I went to a great conference last year called 212. I knew there would be lots of VIPs in attendance since it was an invite-only event. Instead of waiting to pounce on a VIP after their panel, I decided to reach out ahead of time on social. For example, I saw the editor of my favorite magazine, Entrepreneur Magazine, Jason Pfeiffer, was attending. I tweeted him ahead of time, telling him I was also headed to the conference and was really excited to meet him. Then the first day at breakfast, he recognized me from my tweet. We sat together, made friends, and he ended up bringing me on as a columnist for Entrepreneur Magazine. Dream come true. Another pre-conference tip happens during travel. Your event begins the moment you begin to travel. Most people think that they don't have to be ready until the morning of the first day of a conference. However, you can do some amazing networking on buses, planes, and trains on the way to the event. Likely, you can meet people from your home city on the way to a conference you're both attending. When I was on my way to CES one year, I made the most amazing connection on the plane on the way over. Remember, put business cards in your carry-on. Be ready for your elevator pitch or contacts come on the moment you leave the house. Taxi lines are gold. If you're traveling to a city and have to take a taxi to the hotel, talk to the people in the taxi line. If they're going to the conference, you have already made a friend before it even starts. I have shared cab rides into the city with speakers and event sponsors. Insider tip. Sometimes conferences allow you to buy DVDs or digital recordings of the sessions. If you can, do it. I find that sometimes my context come-ons work so well, I miss parts of the sessions. This is great because it's better to take advantage of talking to someone in person. If you have the opportunity to buy the content to listen to later, I recommend doing it. This helps you not worry about missing anything if you get into a great conversation during lunch that runs long, or if a VIP asks you for a last-minute coffee. Tip number 9, contact management system. Hopefully, you're going to be collecting a lot of business cards. Be sure that you have a special pocket in your bag to keep other people's cards separate from yours. I have accidentally given out someone else's card when I reached into the wrong pocket. Typically, I like to keep my cards in my badge so I can reach in easily and grab them. I put other people's cards in my back pocket or conference bag. Now, getting cards is only half of the battle. You want to nurture the contacts you make. Set aside some time at the end of each day to write on each card what you talked about and any tidbits that you want to remember. I also recommend connecting with people on LinkedIn while the conference is going on. I will sit with business cards before going to bed and connect with people on LinkedIn. Why? You get to browse their profile in depth. More than a few times, I have realized I wanted to circle back to a person because we had more in common than I thought, and/or some mutual connections. Want to increase your Twitter followers? Tweet every single person you meet that it was nice meeting them. You will get the activity, retweets, and follows, especially if you use the event hashtag. Block out time in your calendar the day after the conference to do follow-up while everything is still fresh. I always set aside time after a conference to be the first to follow up. Not only does this make you look on the ball, you also get to be the first in the door with potential contacts. Special note, you also want to block out time to transfer all of your notes into action items while they're still fresh. Don't waste all the things you learned in a conference session by letting your notes languish. The biggest overlooked part of going to a conference effectively is the day after. Make time to manage all the notes and contacts you get. Tip number 10, tricks of the trade. Here are a few short and sweet tips that will help you be a conference pro. Look at the agenda ahead of time to get an idea of the sessions you want to prioritize. Be sure to also get a map if it's a big conference so you aren't relying on slow Wi-Fi connections to figure out where you're going. Don't select sessions that you could practically teach yourself. Sign up for at least one session that's completely out of your wheelhouse. I have had some of the best learnings in these random sessions. Beware of conference buddies. It's great to go to a conference with a friend or colleague, but it can make it very hard to network well when you're with someone you already know. First, you'll be approached less. Second, it's harder to use context come-ons when you already have someone to talk to. If you want a conference buddy, challenge yourself to sit separately and network on your own for part of the time. You're never off. You will have industry colleagues, cameras, and possibly bosses at the event. Beware of the free booze and don't get too sloppy. No one likes to see their new colleague dance on a table. Believe me, I know. Use the event hashtag. If you're on Twitter, you can get so many new followers by using the event hashtag. I jump on the hashtag during keynotes and workshops. I post pictures and thank yous. This gets me tons of new followers and activity. If you can, thank the organizers and conference planning committee. They work really hard to put on events and very rarely get thanked. Who knows, you might even be chosen as a speaker for next year. Whew! Those are all my favorite conference tips. I hope they help you rock your next event. Do you know someone who has a conference coming up? Please send them this video so that they can maximize it too. Thanks for watching. Want more advanced social tips? You might be interested in our course, People School. These are my 12 advanced social skills every professional should know. Visit scienceofpeople.com/pschool to watch the overview. I hope to see you in class.